All right, let's add our Facebook groups before it's time to go. Time to start the music. Time to start the show. All right, Thursday. There we go. 1, 2, and 3. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. It is the 18th of January. It's time for an episode of Building Broncos for Breakfast. God, what time of day is it? Broncos for Breakfast. I am Nick Kendell and joined by, as always, Scott Kennedy. Scott, you mentioned we were doing maybe some team building talk today. Got me all wires crossed. How you doing? Happy Thursday to you.
Yeah, it's always building the Broncos on Broncos
Yeah.
for breakfast. So I'm doing good. Got up around the same time you do this morning to take the boy to morning football
Mm,
workouts. And he's got weightlifting class during the day, and then he's got baseball practice after. I'm like, okay, here's your protein shake, buddy.
yeah.
It's he's gonna like walking around spring break, I tell you that.
Yeah, I bet. Hopefully, he's getting his homework done too. That's hard to get everything done there, but that's good for him. Hopefully, everything's going fun. And gosh, if you're committed, then things can open up for you if you're doing that. So, good luck to him. I know he's a heck of a baseball player, and curious to see what his path is in football as well. I mean, he's kind of a bigger kid, right? I'm
Yeah,
wondering.
he's super strong. I just don't know if it'll click with him in football. He started late, and then it doesn't take long to click when it does.
Mhm,
But he didn't really know what he was doing, so he was a little soft last year, just hesitant,
mhm,
and it's like instead of attacking blockers, because he ended up at outside linebacker, he'd kind of let himself be blocked and then kind of try and shed him instead of, sticking a guy and then
mhm.
rocking that guy back and then going after him. So he wouldn't like me to call him soft, but he was a little soft.
Yeah.
But he's not that kid. He's, freshman, 14 years old. He's a young guy, and he had the third highest squat on the team already.
Okay.
He's 165 pounds. He's squatting 275. I'm like, and he's been working out for 6 months. Kid's kind of a beast. I don't mess with him anymore. I tell you that. He gives me a dirty look. I'm like, sorry, sir.
Yes, sir. Oh, well, that's good to hear. Yeah, we'll see how it progresses for him. You think linebacker is his outs goal? I mean, he's such a lanky speed
I
guy.
want him safety.
Safety, wide
Yeah,
receiver.
by the time he hits senior year, even at 17, he should probably be in the 6'3", 195 range, 4'6" ish, somewhere in there. Long strider.
Okay.
So
Well,
that's good for where we play, good for outside linebacker. That's good for edge at that
mhm,
size, but
yeah.
where we play. But I'm interested in safety, but he's a baseball player.
Yeah, for sure. And that's always been the path. Well, I'm going to talk about that and talk about team building. Sean maybe in that, 2030 NFL draft. We'll see how that plays out. And let's
MLB.
see some people to come in here. We got Mark coming in saying, good morning, Papa Nick and Scott. Good to see you, Mark. Thank you so much for the $15 super chat. Hope you're doing well. Always appreciate you coming in. Hopefully the weather hasn't been too bad out down there in Texas. Jeremy Sean's in the house saying, morning, boys. I think Lloyd Cushenberry might be gone, but I'm not sure on Josey Jewell. He also says, sounded like they were laying the tracks for Alex Forsyth and Riley Moss to start going into next season. Yeah, he's talking about the prompt on today's show about will the Broncos retain their two biggest free agents, which is center Lloyd Cushenberry and linebacker Josey Jewell. Obviously, some comments from press conferences over the last 48, 72 hours makes it sound like the Broncos, well, we know for sure, not going to be super active in free agency with the guys outside the organization. But what about the guys inside the organization? What does that look like? We'll get into that more here going forward. Also, did want to touch on Dane Brugler's mock draft that just came out. Unfortunately, it's only 2 rounds. So the Broncos with only one pick in the top 75 this year, which is not great for a team up against the cap wall and needing some young talent. But uh, he has them going with a player that we'll talk about later. We got David Youngkin coming in here saying, morning, Nick and Scott. Question, can they restructure McGlinchey's contract? And if we do get a quarterback, then who do we keep and who do we get rid of? Really depends on how you get the quarterback, because that will change tremendously what you can do cap wise. If you bring in a free agent, there's the bargain bin 1 year salvage project, which can work. I think two of the teams right now in the NFC playoffs, I wouldn't say total salvage projects, but Baker Mayfield, I mean, he was cast aside. The freaking Panthers had him playing scout team edge rusher just a year ago. What a joke of an organization. God, the Panthers are. The Rams picked them up for nothing. So you can find those scout guys. And as we saw, not totally a salvage project, but the Lions certainly feel, and maybe Jared Goff feels a little bit discarded by the Rams. I don't know if you saw the post-game press conference with Dan Campbell saying, Goff, you're good enough. All I'll say is you're good enough for Detroit. And they gave him a ball. So granted, 2 former number 1 overall picks, but that's still bargain bin salvage projects at quarterback. So that changes the conversation. As far as restructuring Mike McGlinchey, you can. The question is, every time we do this, and Scott, well, I'll leave it to you also, but every time you do something like that, most of the time it's committing further down the line, which is you lose that flexibility to move on.
Right. And David, yes, you can restructure anyone. You can restructure anyone's contract, but typically in order to do that, you need some leverage, or, at least the idea that you want to bring them back. The leverage being, I have, let's see, Garrett Bowles. Let's say he's got a $20 million cap hit this year with only a $3 million dead cap hit. I have leverage there. I can waive him and he only cost me $3 million. So listen, do you want to restructure, or do you want me to cut you? That's how that works. Or, hey, we love you. We want you here the next 7 years of your career, and we don't mind making sure you get some more money, guaranteed money down the line. Let's restructure so we can free up a little more space, and you'll get your money. You'll get more money. You'll just get it later down the line. You see that done with young players that are ascending. See a lot with franchise quarterbacks is where you see it with number 1 receivers. You don't see it with guys you want to get rid of when you are underwater on their salaries. Right now, what I mean by underwater, for 2024, Mike McGlinchey has a $30 million dead cap hit, and he's got an 18.5 cap hit. So if you were to move on from him, it would cost you an extra $10 million in salary cap space. You're underwater there. You have no leverage on him. And frankly, you don't want to commit more money to him into the future. So it's the exact same conversation we've had for the last 18 months with Russell Wilson. Can you restructure? Yeah, you can. But you either want to keep him longer, or you have to have the flexibility to cut him. And you don't with Mike McGlinchey. You don't want to keep him longer, and you don't want to you can't cut him financially. So restructuring is kind of out of the option there when you're underwater on your contracts, is where it becomes trouble.
Yeah, the Broncos might be in some financial issues and left a little hungry this offseason in terms of free agency with just what they did last offseason, the Russell Wilson contract and everything. But you know who's not going to leave you hungry? Little Caesars Pizza, of course. We love Little Caesars here. Scott, take it away.
Yeah, nice transition. We want you to make Little Caesars, who is the official pizza sponsor of the NFL, part of your game day. Order online during our Pizza pregame, 1 hour before and 3 hours after NFL kickoffs, which is Saturday and Sundays right now, and get ready for some football and fun. Choose your favorite Little Caesars pizza or pick the toppings you crave. Either way, you win.
Yeah, been big on the pizza kick here since happy 2 weeks since birth to my little guy, and I probably had pizza 3 meals. So definitely getting in the sodium, and Little Caesars is always a winning choice. I absolutely love the stuffed crazy bread, just crazy bread in general. I get the crazy bread and the stuffed crazy bread. Pull it apart, get a little marinara dipping sauce to it, whip up some of your own, ranch or garlic or whatever. I mean, it's really good stuff. Always a winning combination. And speaking of winning, everyone scores with our convenient delivery and our in-store pizza portal pickup. So grab some friends and enjoy a few slices during my favorite week of football in the entire year, this upcoming weekend.
So let's move on. I'm going to grab this spammer real quick out of Facebook. See you later.
I'll grab some people in the chat. We got Aaron.
I was going to hit Mark too in the chat real quick.
We did say hi to Mark on this one, but that's okay. We'll get you twice.
That's right.
Mark.
That's right. Yeah, we did. But I don't mind saying hello to Mark twice.
No, absolutely not. Mark's the best. We also got Aaron saying, "Morning, guys. Glad to see everything's better with the fam, Nick." Yeah, it's better and better. The guy's all of a sudden just starting to pack on pounds. So God bless him. We'll see what maybe he's going to end up being that corn-fed Iowa lineman after all. Says Aaron Wagner. Question for y'all: if you had to put a probability next to it, how likely is Sean Payton to even draft a rookie quarterback while he's here? If his priority is winning, it doesn't seem like he'd care to draft one. I think pretty confidently he's going to draft one. Now, is he going to draft one in the first round? Is he going to trade up for one? I don't know. And that's one of my big takeaways. I think it was like week 16, I guess it'd be 17, week 17, where the announcers and everybody's going on and on and on about how complicated Sean Payton's system is, how it's one of the most difficult ones to understand in the entire NFL, and how all this stuff. I'm like, man, you're expecting a rookie to come in, and maybe they'll draft one, but a rookie to come in day one and take that. I know they can dumb it down some, but it really doesn't seem like Sean wants to dumb it down, and he's kind of leaned more towards veterans in his career that he can more easily implement his offense. So I think he could draft a guy. I don't think you're going to see a rookie start year one unless the Broncos were like picking 1 or 2, but that's obviously not happening this year.
I'm really tired of that narrative. I really
Yeah.
am.
Okay.
It's just because it's not true. It's talking points that people are putting out there for PR based on the blow up with Russell Wilson, et cetera, et cetera. You don't have Jameis Winston come in and throw the ball all over the place and become a 100 rating passer all of a sudden. Teddy Bridgewater, Taysom Hill. You don't do that with those guys if you don't know how to coach to your players.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. Oh my God. If it's too hard, it's wrong. You have too many people come in and change constantly. You've got too much limitation with how much you're actually even allowed to practice to have something that is NASA complicated for these quarterbacks. It's ridiculous. Enough. Now we can talk about some of the things he wants to do and are they capable of doing it? Most guys are. Most guys are capable of doing it. Now when you've got a historically short quarterback who has trouble over the middle of the field, that changes things up a little bit. But the idea that, oh my God, it's unbelievably complicated. Come on, man. Enough.
I do want to push back a little bit on this. Just one thing that asking around about this, one reason that this is thought to be the case is that the Shanahan West Coast system is considered to be one of the more simple systems for quarterbacks out there. And Sean Payton not running that style. And as we've seen over the last 5-8 years, that Mike Shanahan, Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay tree is just everywhere.
Because
in the
simple
league.
is good. Keep it simple, stupid.
I'm with you, but Sean, I don't know if has evolved that way to match, I guess, the simple stupidity or whatever you want to call, not stupidity for sure, but with the Shanahans going on. So maybe while the rest of the league has evolved and changed and Sean just staying the same as he was, now it is a more complicated offense. I mean, just,
how
working out.
Just does it have to be when you got Taysom Hill winning games for your quarterback?
Not super hard because it's
how
a certain
complicated
package.
Is it when you've got Jameis Winston come in and throwing for $120 with 15 touchdowns and interception the second he puts on a Saints helmet? How complicated actually is it? How complicated is it when I can throw Teddy Bridgewater in there in the middle of the season, his first year in New Orleans, and have him go 4-0?
It can't be overly
It can't be that complicated. And he has to be able to make a changement to adjust to his quarterbacks and what they are comfortable with. How complicated is this game when Josh Dobbs can get off the bus, hop on the MARTA train, show up in the first quarter of a Falcons game and the Vikings and win? How complicated is this game actually? It drives me nuts that we try and turn this into some sort of brain surgery. Guys, get the right guys, line up, win the trenches, hit your play action, make accurate throws, and win games. I hope it's more complicated. As hard as we make it out, for God's sakes.
Well,
Get better players.
I hope it's a little bit more complicated, just because otherwise we might be out of a live stream, right? If it was that simple every time. But I think that some of it is the difference of the Shanahan tree taking over. And I'm with you. If it is so complicated that guys can't execute it, and we're seeing this at Iowa every year, unfortunately, like, that takes 4 years for a guy to get it. Well, then something's wrong with your system if it takes 4 freaking years to have people play average football out there when other guys are plugging and playing. So maybe there's a different conversation to have there entirely about the complication. Maybe also Sean Payton wasn't fully in his bag with those other guys immediately, like he was obviously with the Drew Brees. The one I can't speak to Teddy Bridgewater, but I do know that Jameis Winston was considered an absolute whiz on the whiteboard in terms of the X's and O's. Now on the field, sometimes he loses his damn mind. But as far as, what to do against coverages and everything on the whiteboard, apparently he's brilliant. So maybe he took in the offense better. I can't speak to it. I wasn't covering the Saints. I don't know every in and out there. But yeah, it is going to be interesting to see.
Most of them are. Most of these guys are smart enough. They've been playing this game long enough to do it that, again, now the decision-making under the heat of battle means a whole lot more to me, because that actually is tangible. To saying these guys, oh, they're not smart enough to pick up the system, then the system's broken. Then it's broken. How do they react under pressure? Can they make the throws? That is so much more important to me than, yes, I assume that they're not complete freaking idiots.
Yeah. And just to dig into this just a little bit more, I know it's kind of getting hot under your collar on this one, Scott, but for the quarterback specifically, one reason that you want the quarterback to be so intelligent with the play calls is that you can dumb down the language that is utilized in a play call. But what that does is it puts the onus on all of the 10 other guys on the field. So if you have a quarterback who can rattle off every single thing out there, and get the play call in, and there's a certain part of the play that's, for the wide receivers, that's fine. The wide receiver doesn't have to know as much. You can listen for his call on that play. However, if you have to shorten it down because the quarterback can't get it done, every single other guy on that offense has to be smarter and know what the shortened version of the play call means and is. So a lot of times you put a more onus on the quarterback because of that. The play calls get him in time. So that way the positions that aren't as intelligent based as the quarterback can go out there and hear their job and get it done. You also have the quarterback working sometimes, most of the time, identifying the mic, getting the right pre-snap line checks, not always on the center, although you can with a rookie quarterback and a veteran center. But Payton wants it on the quarterback, it seems.
Which is fine. This is your only job.
Yep.
This is what you do now. You don't have to go through the farce of being a student athlete anymore.
Yeah.
This is your job.
Yep.
This is what you have to do.
So I do think that given what sorry, I guess if the right quarterback was there, they absolutely would toss him out there. But I think he's going to put a lot on it, whoever quarterback's plate mentally. And I think that lends itself to a better chance for a veteran quarterback early on next season, given where the Broncos are picking. If they were picking at 1 or 2 and they had a chance at Caleb Williams or Drake May, different conversation, I think. You figure it out there. I don't know if Nix, Penix, McCarthy are worth, just kind of figuring it out early on, or even worth the 12th pick, but that's an entirely different conversation.
Yeah, again, the world's smartest chicken is going to be dead meat to the world's dumbest lion. And we overcomplicate this game. I swear we do. And part of it is the coach's fault. It's the idea that, that they're doing something that no one else can do. And in their hearts, they know, hey, listen, other people can do this too. Just going back to, the way they guard secrets, like I digress. We'll move on.
It's worse in college.
It was in college. That was where it really started to get me. Yeah. You'd have Mark Richt who was closing up Georgia like they were selling nuclear war secrets. And then I'd go out to USC and Pete Carroll like, yeah, y'all come on in, watch. We're gonna go kick everybody's ass. Watch us do it. It was and they're like, had special teams coaches saying, I don't want you watching this, what we're doing. You have to get off the field now. I'm like, dude, you're kicking the ball into the corner over there. What the hell is wrong with you, man?
Oh, you kick it through the uprights. God, that's brilliant. It's funny. There's
a lot of insecurity among those inflated egos.
I mean, then you have the whole Michigan, Spygate thing going on here, and now I guess Ohio State's involved in it. It's hilarious. There's no better drama than professional sports and college sports at that. Miguel Santasteven, $5. And good morning, fellas. Congrats, Nick, on the newborn. Thank you so much. Are there going to be any good defensive linemen in free agency? There are going to be good defensive linemen in free agency. The issue is that you don't probably have the ability to pay guys. Luckily, even though it's probably going to be a post June 1st cut for Wilson, you can start paying guys next year because the way a lot of these contracts are set up, that first year cap hit is pretty low, even when you spread across that signing bonus. But that's pretty hard to do over 2 seasons. So probably not going to see any big signings this year on the defensive line. Probably going to have more bargain bin kind of signings where you're looking for somebody maybe to come in on a 1-year deal, maybe somebody that didn't hit at another place that you're like, okay, we like the talent here. Let's give it a shot. Lightning in a bottle. Maybe we'll get something. Somebody like a Javon Kinlaw, former first-round pick. Maybe you bring him in and work something out there. I don't know if somebody didn't work at the 49ers, if they'll work at all, but that's the kind of guy that you're talking about here. Unfortunately, there are good defensive linemen, though. Chris Jones is set to be a free agent. We'll see what happens with him. Christian Wilkins is a really good free agent defensive lineman, former first-round pick out of Clemson. I don't have a list in front of me. Those are 2 that stand. DJ Reader but he had a serious injury. But there's more and more, I'm sure.
How about Grover Stewart up in Indianapolis?
God, I love Grover Stewart.
There you go.
Grover
Stewart up in Indianapolis is going to be a big one.
He's going to get paid.
And I don't think they'll have the ability to franchise him because they might have to franchise Michael Pittman.
And they also already paid Buckner. They're going to pay that much to 2 defensive tackles.
They have $66 million open right now.
Wow.
Yeah, the Colts are in a decent position. They just have some free agents that they have to pay. So Yes, Miguel, there's going to be some good defensive linemen available in free agency. And not to be harsh on this, but it's just true. The level of play was so poor that it won't be hard to improve. Your
Exactly.
defensive line, you hate it when I say this, Nick, and so do I, because now I hear it echoing in my head, but there's nowhere to go but up. On the defensive line play, that you should be able to improve your defensive line play pretty easily, because it was bad in 2023. It was really bad.
Yeah, and the edges go into that as well. Just the entire defensive front needs a facelift. Unfortunately, with limited cap and limited draft picks, it might be pretty hard to do. We need some young guys on this roster to step up. We'll see what happens here. But thank you so much, Miguel, for the super chat and the positivity. Congra asking, why do the Broncos continually overvalue underperforming talent? They're not able to recognize competent football players. I don't know. I mean, I think it's been more of the injury stuff going on for the Broncos and having to overpay mediocre talent. The guys who hit free agency typically are mediocre talents. I think the bigger issue for this Broncos team is that you haven't been able to identify first and second round picks and the ones that have been good enough to retain. I mean, how many of the players in the Broncos, I think they only have like 4 first round picks on the entire roster. The second round picks are terrible as well. They just haven't not hit on those ones. And those are the guys that you want to identify and then hit those second contracts. Otherwise, you have to overpay in free agency, and that's where we've been.
Yeah, we're in 3 drafts of George Payton. He's 1 for 1 on his first round picks. With Pat Surtain, he just hadn't had first round,
or 1 for 3.
Yeah, or 1 for 3 if you talk about what you gave up for those picks.
Yeah.
Or 2 for 4 because he got 1 back. He used 1 on Sean Payton. I think that was worth that was a hit, so to speak. So holy cow. So sorry guys, things change when Rattlesnake Master comes in.
Holy
Shinola.
Oh my God.
Rattlesnake Master has just pegged it, hit the maximum. And this is the maximum that they allow. And there's only 4 or 5 people that have ever done this, Rattlesnake Master, and you've entered the club.
I don't think I've ever seen this.
Congrats on the baby, Nick. You're going to be a great dad. Love from Nebraska. #DiaperFun with $500 super chat. I'm done. We're out of here. My goal is accomplished for the day. I'm taking the rest of the day off thanks to Rattlesnake Master.
My God. Yeah, if you have any football questions at 3 a.m.
Here's my phone number. Call me.
Yeah.
I'm available all day.
Social Security, mother's made no. God, thank you so much. Yeah, it's been a whirlwind. It was very tough early on, and it's still tough and changing, but he's figuring it out. He's figuring out how to, be a baby at this point, born a little bit more preemie, and that was really scary, just trying to figure it out. I mean, when you go to the pediatrician, they're like, yeah, pack a bag. You're going to be admitted to the hospital. You need to be there in an hour. That's, excuse me. I'm okay. That's just a frog in my throat. I'm not crying. But the horrifying. I don't think I've ever had that kind of fear. But doing better, and really, really appreciate the support from all you guys. But I mean, it's almost too much. I'm not going to say don't do this because God bless you, but I don't even know what to say. That's an unbelievable level of support and kindness. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, I've said all along, Nick's gonna be a great dad. I can't wait for him to be a dad, and we get to take this journey with him, y'all. So thank you, Rattlesnake Master. Certainly appreciate you. I'll update the super chat rankings, and I know who's at number 1 and what they've given, and you're number 1 now. So I think you've got a little something coming your way regardless. So hit me up via email, skennedy, redneck it up a little bit, SKINNEDY, skinnedy@gmail.com. Want to make sure we can at least send you a Broncos for breakfast mug or something for that. So we certainly appreciate it. String Guy has been just chomping at the bit for this, about Jeudy and the Browns for a second round pick. So I want to make sure we get to String Guy. The rumor is Jeudy going to the Browns for a second round pick. Now, what would you think of that rumor actually being truth at this point, meaning it's already happened and it's fact? They're just waiting on it to complete, because that's what it means by a rumor, is that's what's happening.
I would be blown away if you were getting a second round pick for Jeudy at this point. I think you're probably more likely talking about a 4th or 5th round pick. Odds are you're going to get a better wide receiver, younger, cost control in the second round in this draft than you actually are going to get Jerry Jeudy. I know he still has that first round pedigree. It hasn't been all his fault here, but you have 4 years of play and injuries and drops and issues that make him not as valuable of an asset. And that goes beyond the cost control. And it's one of the better wide receiver drafts we've had in a very, very long time. So not just at the top, but the depth too. So I would be absolutely blown away if the Broncos were getting a second round pick for Jeudy, unless it was like Denver sending their third round pick
There's
and
no
Jeudy.
unless. I want to get back to this. I'll feed this to you. So Nick's thought, and so is mine, we agree on this, that the idea that the Denver Broncos are getting a second round pick from the Cleveland Browns for Jerry Jeudy, no, we don't believe that. Now, the Browns were the Broncos wanted a second round pick and higher second round. Now this one would be in the low 50s from the Browns, I would think. They wanted a second round pick last year for Jerry Jeudy. What were you told, Nick, that they were offered for Jerry Jeudy?
Last year during the trade deadline, there was talk of a third round
offer
pick.
that you heard that we talked about during. That's last year. That's last year now. Trade deadline is last year.
I know Schefter had talked about the Broncos had a round 3 pick on the table for Jeudy. However, not widely reported that I had heard is that Denver would be sending a 4th round pick back with Jeudy to get that third. So really, you're not getting, while it's painted, or you're getting a top 100 pick, you're giving up pick 120 at the same time. So you're not getting tremendous value at the surface. You're still giving away a young cost-controlled contract, especially one in the top 120. So when I hear second round pick, I think that can't be it. Because that doesn't make any sense. I think on the surface, Judy's probably worth a 4th or 5th at this point, especially because you have to eat, 13, 16 million of his contract. And he's been the injuries on top of it, a great wide receiver draft class, not a desolate wide receiver free agency class like last year either. So I would be exceedingly skeptical if this happened.
Yeah. And that's the thing. So to recap, last year, the Broncos were offered, this is rumor, but this is a little bit better than just chatting a message room rumor. The Broncos were offered a 3rd round pick for Jerry Jeudy and a 4th. Has Jerry Judy's value increased since then, or has it decreased since then?
It's probably decreased so slightly. Yeah, not a lot though. But it
hasn't gone up to where I'm getting a second round pick for him now.
No.
His value has decreased. I have less time. He's more expensive. $13 million. Right now, I think you would take a pick swap for him to get out from under that contract. And I think to get a decent pick for him, you're going to have to eat his contract, which kind of defeats the purpose anyway. Yeah. If I got to pay someone $10 million to take him, I might as well keep him and hope to play the comp game.
That's what we're probably approaching here, unfortunately. And Jeudy still got a chance to be a good player. He's talented, guys. He's still exceedingly young, maybe with a more timing-oriented offense and quarterback that he goes off next year. I don't think he's ever going to be a wide receiver 1, but he can still be a valuable player. It's just he hasn't shown it so far, and the Broncos are in a tough spot because teams know they are also a little bit desperate to move some guys. It's one reason that on the surface, I've asked Monday, would you rather get rid of Jeudy or Sutton? Of course, rather get rid of Jeudy. Always been on the pro Sutton train on that one, honestly. But the way the finances work and, just business in general, sell high, buy low. I've probably moving to Sutton at that point, unless he, bringing it full circle to our conversation earlier, agrees to a contract extension, which really lowers his cap hit the next 2 seasons, which I wouldn't be shocked if they had done that with some guys already, just like they did with Wilson. But I digress. Yeah, we'll see what happens. I just can't imagine. You're talking probably about a 5th round pick for Jeudy, and that's them taking the contract, in my opinion. That's probably the best.
So we've been talking about last year, Nick. Let's talk about this year and getting started on your resolutions with Factor Meals. So you're ready for the new year. Factor's ready to eat meal delivery, takes the stress out of meal planning and sets you up for success in the new year. Skip the grocery stores, the prep work, the cooking fatigue, Nick. Instead, get chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals delivered right to your door. With over 35 meals to choose from per week, including options like keto, calorie smart, vegan and veggie, and more, plus over 55 weekly add-ons, you'll have a ton of nutritious and flavorful options to kickstart your resolutions.
Yeah, skip the stress of meal prepping with Factor. Choose from more than 35 weekly flavor-packed, fresh, never frozen meals that support a healthy lifestyle and meet your meal preferences, all delivered right at your door and ready to eat within 2 minutes. This January, get Factor and enjoy eating well without the hassle. Simply choose your meals and enjoy fresh, flavor-packed meals delivered to your door, ready in just 2 minutes. No prep, no mess. Join Mile High Huddle and making Factor a way of life 365 days a year.
So head to factormeals.com/huddle50 and use our code huddle50 to get 50% off. That's huddle50 at factormeals.com/huddle50 to get that 50% off.
Yeah, definitely Factor is going to have to keep me alive after the family has kind of rotated out of here because they don't really have time for the cooking as much these days. So shout out to Factor. Always good to see you. We got Keith Brugman saying it's draft and develop, but don't re-sign Cushenberry. Why and where's the replacement? Why? You probably don't have the financial ability to bring in a solid starting center, retain a solid starting center, especially when you've drafted some guys that might be cheap in-house options with more years of cost control. And you might even be playing the compensatory pick game. The way the Broncos, Penner, George Payton talked in recent press conferences about the Broncos, not making big moves early in free agency. You have two guys who are not going to cost a lot, but might be able to get you a few extra picks in Cushenberry and Jewell. I wouldn't be surprised to let them both walk, sign guys later, sign guys that don't qualify for those comp pick cancellations, and let Cushenberry walk. It's going to be tough. The other thing is that you already are paying Garrett Bowles. You already are paying Ben Powers. You already are paying Mike McGlinchey. And guess who's going to be ready to get paid a year from now? Quinn Miners. I mean, heck, there's a possibility that Quinn Miners, holds out this offseason for a contract because he's played well. I don't think it'll happen, but he's eligible for a new contract now after being in the league for 3 years. And he's going to get freaking paid, guys. He might be like a top 5 interior offensive line contract. They're talking about that with him right now. So signing Cushenberry, does that limit your ability to retain Miners if you had to pick between the two? Because you only have so many pieces of the pie for each of these groups with the way these teams budget. They budget by positional groups. So if they didn't have a guard right now or they hadn't paid Powers and McGlinchey last year, probably a different conversation. But you kind of made your choice there. And now it's Cushenberry or Miners. I think you got to go Miners in that situation.
Yeah, we don't see holdouts nearly as much as we used to now that with the guaranteed contracts for rookies, especially. It's kind of unfair a little bit. Just because this is where you thought I was doesn't mean that's where I am. How about you pay me where I am? So it's not quite fair. They're getting better though. They are improving with that type of stuff. But I think now we talked about replacing Cushenberry for 3 years. Now we talk about like he's a must keep. We saw this last year with some guys that were really bad for 3 years and then okay for 4th. And then what do you decide to do with them? Now, Cushenberry was really bad for 3 years and he was solid. I mean, if you go by PFF and say he was 10, that's going to put him in the $8 million range on a multi-year deal. So let's say 3 years, $24 million. It gets reported as 4-year, $50 million. It's a 4-year, $50 million contract with 25 guaranteed. Okay, that's a 3-year, $8 million a year deal. Or Alex Forsythe, who George Payton just stood up and said, we think he's a starter in this league, is making $900,000. Okay, that's $7.x million I can allocate somewhere else. And I don't feel like I'm losing much. What do you think? What do you think, Nick? How much do you think you're losing? I mean, when you start looking at multiples, you know for a fact they're not worth it. Is Lloyd Cushenberry 8 times better than Alex Forsythe? Hell no, of course not. You could put Javonte Williams at center and Cushenberry wouldn't be 8 times better than him. There's it's an exponential curve when it comes to ability and pay. But do you think you can get similar replacement level out of Alex Forsythe and save $7 million a year? I'd be willing to take that chance more than likely. I'm not giving Lloyd Cushenberry $25 million guaranteed over 3 years.
Yeah, it's just tough. You have to find guys and, coins in the cushions, so to speak, changing the couch with where the roster is at right now, with your lack of draft picks that you've had over the last 3 cycles and this one as well, with your financial cap ramifications of the Russell Wilson contract. Some of these guys are going to have to step up. And it's just, you kind of backed yourself into a hole with the moves the past 3 seasons leading to this one. So unfortunately, if the Broncos had a rookie cost control quarterback, let's say CJ Stroud was back there and you were really, great in the cap department, maybe didn't have the pick still. Guess what? Cushenberry, welcome back, man. We love you. We're not paying diddly squat for the quarterback. Let's keep the ball rolling. You're not there. You're not there. You are in I saw a question earlier, why is everybody being negative? I don't know. God, maybe I come off as negative too, but I think you look at the team, the talent they have, the picks, the cap, the AFC West of it all. It's probably not going to be a very good team next year, guys. I mean, things can happen, but
you got $50 million in your quarterback room and you don't know if you've got a quarterback.
Yeah.
That's not a good starting spot. Doesn't mean it's crippling. Like we went over last week, I went over the salary cap. It's not as bad as it seems, but it's not. That's because people think like this, it's over. This team is dead for 2 years. No, it's not. Mm-hmm. It's not that bad. It's not great. You'd certainly rather have the top 5 quarterback that you're paying for, but it's not awful. Michael Ronquillo coming in. Looks like he had a good time at Arizona Wildcats basketball game last night. Love to see it, Michael. Good morning, Nick and Scott on Broncos for breakfast. Go Broncos. You can stay out late and still join us. He's got to be a lot younger than me then. I got to go to bed early, man.
I don't know what sleep is. So appreciate you, Michael. I saw Bijan Robinson was there too, I think he said. So that's pretty cool. Get some NFL stars in there. We got the Bookmeister saying, good morning, big dogs. Congratulations to you, Nick, and your wife. I know. Where's the big dogs at? Bow wow. They grew up quick. I'm sure Russell will be back next year. Sure. Wow, interesting. Bring over DK with Sutton and Mims as your speed guys. I don't know if you have the ability to bring in DK with the contract and stuff, but yeah, that would be pretty wild. There's been some talk over the last 72 hours, I guess, that Russell Wilson might be back. I've kind of waved it off as nonsense, like dying, the horror, kind of at the heart of darkness here with that contract and everything with the Broncos. But I'd be pretty skeptical if he's back and this is the pathway, but who knows? I've been pretty shocked that there's been some traction and that people have taken and run with Russell Wilson back as a talking point.
See, this is where you need the abused, cynical sports fan like me in here, okay? Because we had the question yesterday about Russ, said he was happy, looking forward to 2024, posted the Cortland Sutton touchdown catch, was really happy. There's a chance he could be back. That's what I'm reading into this. All right, let me go on the negative side of this because that's where I live, okay? What were we talking about 2 days prior? Cortland Sutton's Instagram post saying goodbye. Russell Wilson then saying, hey, congrats. Here's me and Cortland Sutton being awesome. Can't wait for 2024. That's Russell Wilson saying Cortland Sutton's history too. Maybe. That's where my mind automatically goes. So Cortland Sutton has every chance in the world to be a Denver Bronco. Russell Wilson, I don't see it. I don't see it. Yeah. I see people say, and this is where I got on Chad and Zach the other night, mostly Chad. I just kind of lump them together. I didn't want to single Chad out about talking about Russell Wilson and seeming selfish for not wanting to restructure his deal when guys like Garrett Bowles and Cortland Sutton could be better Broncos for restructuring theirs. It's apples and oranges. The Broncos don't want Russell Wilson. They don't want him. Why would he take a pay cut? No, You're going to pay me every dollar you owe me, and then you're going to release me. Why would I give money back if you don't want me? That's stupid.
Yeah.
So that's where that is. The chances of Russell Wilson being back on or being back on a lower deal are just about zero. So
yeah, I do think that, again, what did the Broncos approach him with? It was that, would you push back that injury guarantee so that way it doesn't kick in for 2025? I think if that was agreed upon, then you could see Wilson back and it would be a 1-year deal.
The trust factor, dude.
It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. I'm just saying that's the only reasonable outcome I can see here, where they do not have that injury guarantee become guaranteed on the 5th day of the league year this year, which then makes it essentially a 1-year deal. That's actually, it's not even that. It's the roster bonus, that $37 million. Then it becomes a 1-year deal. And I think we can chat 1-year deal for what he's getting paid next year, but it's the 2 years of money and that additional 37 that just makes it not happening here. And we'll see. I mean, I appreciate the comment and the thoughts there. I don't think the Broncos have the ability to bring in a DK Metcalf, both from a draft picks and a salary cap perspective. And I don't think Wilson is back either. But we'll see. It doesn't mean Wilson's the worst quarterback ever. I still think, he played in that, 14 to 18th best quarterback in the NFL last year. But for what you were paying him, it's not quite good enough. And is he going to be better than that as he gets older with his athleticism diminishing? Especially with how
the idea of did I have to slim down my, and I'm not saying dumb it down, because that's not what I mean after I just went on the tirade in the first 10 minutes of the show about the complication of the offense. Do I have to slim down my play calls so much because there's just certain things that he's limited on because, frankly, of his size and what he's comfortable doing? That's where I think Sean Payton's uncomfortable. I don't want to have to just call these plays and these plays. And what I really don't want to have happen is to have a call a play and him just spin out of the pocket at the first sign of trouble and take off on his own. That's what I don't want to have happen. So Sean Payton made the call on this, and he doesn't want Russell Wilson. Montana Altitude comes in. Thank you with that Broncos orange. He says, morning, guys. If we do draft a quarterback, do we start him immediately?
I think there'd be a competition. It depends on, again, it depends on where you draft a quarterback. If you're taking one at 12.
Let's say at 12, yeah. Let's say you draft a first-round quarterback. You're at 12. Does he start immediately?
There's going to be a competition, and if they are ready, they'll go. I think that if you took a Penix or a Nix, who are going to be 24 years old next year as rookies, then possibly you could see those guys take off. I think those guys, they're like 3 years older than Anthony Richardson, who already has a year in the league. But they have a chance to come in and start year one. I think you'd give a chance to J.J. McCarthy as well. But you're going to go into the draft where you are comfortable not having to take a quarterback at 12 overall. And it's much more, when I say comfortable, I mean we can run a functional offense next year and plug our nose for a year if we have to at the quarterback spot with a Sam Darnold, with the Jameis Winston, with a Jacoby Brissett, with a Jarrett Stidham, with a Jimmy Garoppolo. Those are the 5 names that stand out to me. Nobody wants to hear it. No, that's not exciting for anybody, but you're going to have to probably, back on the quarterback carousel. We never were off it, guys, unfortunately. But that's probably the reality of it. If you draft Nix or Penix at 12 and they come in and beat out that veteran quarterback who is more of a stopgap type, God bless. Then we could see him start immediately. But I don't think it's a guarantee. If we were picking 1 or 2, different conversation entirely. Drake May, Caleb Williams with a bullet. Definitely starting day 1. They're going to be fine. I'm not as totally high on Jaden Daniels as the consensus. I think he's going to be a top 10 pick. I think he's out of range for the Broncos, but I don't think he's in the conversation of May and Williams. So I haven't been talking about him as much in that fit. But for the guys who are available, if you draft them, there'll be a competition. I think a better chance for Nix or Penix to start with compared to McCarthy day 1, but we'll see. They'll get a chance.
So on this one, Montana Altitude, I think, and Nick hit on it, I'm just going to sum it up, is 1, 2, and 3 started last year. They ended up starting right away. Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson all won the starting job. There will be a competition, but they won the starting job and started their rookie seasons. Will Levis did not. He's 24 years old also. He's an older guy. He came in, he was 33rd, so he was a second-round pick, but basically a first-rounder, and was thought to be possibly being drafted in the top 10. And he started midway through. I could see something like that happening if you took one of those quarterback 4, 5, or 6, that it could be, yes, we're going to have a legit competition, but no, we're okay if we have to start Jarrett Stidham for the first month, 2 months of the season before we throw this kid to the wolves. That's the way I see it, Montana Altitude, that it could happen, but I wouldn't guarantee it like I will with 1 and 2. Like Nick said, I think Caleb Williams and Drake May are shoe-ins. Depending on where Jaden Daniels goes, I think he's got a pretty damn good chance of starting right away too. After that, it'll be a competition, and then we'll see type of moment. You know who we like seeing here? Look at Gary Palmer coming in here with the hot pink. You need to have more babies, Nick. Get on that. Get on that. I'm done. I'm done. Gary Palmer coming in with a hot pink super. Says, good morning, Nick and Scott. Congratulations, Nick. Absolutely. Congratulations, Nick.
Yeah, this is all just a big ruse, actually. I got you. There's actually no baby. I just adopted another dog. But actually bought a new car. That's it. My new baby. No, I'm just kidding, guys. No ruse. Really do appreciate it, Gary. And just all the love, you guys. It is actually pretty overwhelming. I don't even know what to say. Again, other than thank you. Do want to say hello to some people in here. Quentin Caldwell, good morning, everyone. Congrats. We got Philip Hogginson in here. Chris Beeston in the house. Always good to see you. Kayleon Green. Always appreciate it. Kathy is in the house. I think Pearl was in here too. James Hyatt. Always good to see you, James. Greg Smith is in the house. Jamal Killings. Lawrence Rivera. Don't know what you're saying there, Lawrence, but did want to say hi. Amy Alice coming in here. Always good to see you, Amy. I see Roderick Cook as well. Ernie Mays, go Broncos country only. Good to see you, Ernie. Always appreciate you. Mike Johnson in
He
here.
got
Go
it
ahead.
on there. Yeah, he changed. Well, it wasn't just
Go Bills, go Packers, Lions, Ravens. All right.
Ernie. He's turning to the dark side. Are you finding yourself? See, my teams were always out of the playoffs. I mean, always, except for the Atlanta Hawks when I was a kid. I always had to find someone else to root for. I'm used to picking a team. I mean, do you watch a game and not find yourself rooting for a team? I can't help it. I pretty much one of the things I like about draws is that's like them both losing. You can actually have a draw in a game and it's like, oh, why do you have ties? Because that's like them both losing. It's awesome.
Kissing your sister, right?
When you do the point system, 3 points for a win, 1 for a tie, a draw is both teams losing. It's awesome. I can't help but find myself rooting for teams. So yeah, I was a Dallas Cowboys fan too when I was a kid. Yeah, I rooted for Joe Montana when I was a kid because they were still playing in January when my teams were done by October.
Yeah. I hate to admit it, but I had family in Missouri, and I definitely growing up had a Tony Gonzalez jersey that I enjoyed to wear. Tight end was my favorite spot to play, and did enjoy me some Tony G. Good player, so I would never be caught dead in a Chiefs jersey now. But the family in Missouri had, gift and other thoughts there. Also, I did rock with the Rams for a little bit when they had the Kurt Warner era, but that's just because I knew Kurt Warner. My dad worked with his sister-in-law, and I knew his like family and stuff, and he used to like see Kurt Warner rocking around the dad's club soccer facility to check out his nieces and nephews games. So was a big fan of Kurt Warner and the Rams and the Dick Vermeil team and the Greatest Show on Turf when that happened as well. But Broncos through and through, of course. Troy coming in too. God bless. Hey guys, can you talk about Jermaine Pratt? Jermaine? Is it Jermaine? I might be missing up the linebacker of the Cincinnati Bengals too. Pratt, quarterback of Tulane, if you have not already. Yeah, Pratt has been pretty good out there in Tulane for a couple of years now. Definitely noticed him last season when we've been scouting that Tulane Green Wave team that was really good. Took it to USC in whatever New Year's Six Bowl. That was probably the best New Year's Six Bowl last year. And he's a smart quarterback, has a pretty good job in terms of layering throws to different levels. I think he's got a good touch. He's not very big. He's not very athletic, doesn't have a great arm, but he plays like a very smart quarterback with limited tools. I'm curious to see. I'm hoping, Scott, not that it'd be fun for you, but I'm hoping that we get a weather event of some sort in Mobile.
They move inside and you don't get to see them.
Even with wind?
With wind is just miserable. So
okay. I want wind. I don't want the rain, but I want a little bit of wind just because I want to see what Pratt's arm looks like in that scenario. And you know what, Scott? Here's what we do. Perfect weather for you. God bless. Sunny, 70. Have a great time. Let's have some weather during the game itself because they're going to play that one outside. So perfect scenario. Everybody wins. But that's my question with Pratt. I think you're probably talking about a guy who is round 3, round 4 quarterback. If you look historically, you see a lot of quarterbacks taken round 1, some early round 2, and then there's a drop off until like the beginning of the 4th round. And then you have quarterbacks go off the board like crazy, top of the 4th round, first 12, 16 picks. Those are the guys that like, we targeted this guy as a smart guy we want for the room who maybe could be a spot starter, but really hopefully a cost-controlled backup that can develop into something. That's probably what you're talking about with Pratt, just because he is limited in the tools. But I think he could come in and execute the Sean Payton offense. I'm really curious to see what his arm looks like next to some of the absolute bazookas that are going to be down there at the Senior Bowl this year. Nix has a really good arm. Obviously, Penix has a really good arm. The best 2 arms down there at the Senior Bowl are not the top 2 quarterbacks. Rattler has an unbelievable arm, and probably the best arm down there is somebody who, really can't hit the broadside of a barn, but if you're just looking for air yards and launching it, Joe Milton has an unbelievable arm. Not accurate. It's going to land out of bounds half the time. But just watching the velocity on that with Pratt compared to those other guys will be fun to just kind of get an assessment on where his arm stands.
I'm going to drop this in the chat. Just give him a little love. I really like this site, NFL Mock Draft Database. It kind of tries to pool in a bunch of mock drafts. It's not perfect. Obviously, nothing ever is. But I do use that site, and I just noticed a new graphic, or maybe I just noticed it and it hasn't been new, but they've got Senior Bowl graphics next to the players' names too. So Nick's just smart enough that he remembers who is going to be there. I don't typically pay that close attention because I'm going anyway. regardless who's there.
Yeah.
But Michael Penix, Bo Nix, Michael Pratt, Spencer Rattler, Joe Milton, and Notre Dame's Sam Hartman are the 6 quarterbacks. Giddy up. I can't wait to go down there. I just used one of your giddy ups. Next, I'm going to say woof.
That's no side jar, though. But yeah, no, it's going to be fun to watch Pratt. I think that he probably just doesn't have the enough factor in terms of the arm talent to be a good starter in the league, but been wrong before. Played some really fun games down there with the Green Wave. I think you're going to walk away, though, in watching him, Scott, and be like, yeah, I'm just watching Bailey Zappi. I mean, just like you watch the arm, it's like, oh, yeah, it's getting there. But
that's how a lot of the Senior Bowl quarterbacks are, is the problem.
Yeah. It's going to feel, I think,
not
probably
anymore, though. This week's going to be fun. And it's actually in about 10 days. In about 10 days, I'll be down there. Well, today's Thursday. Practice starts on January 30th. So 11 days after today is when I'll be down there and get to watch them throw for 3 straight days. Hopefully weather, nobody pulls out, and we get to do all of those things. So Troy, I will have, not only will be able to tell you what I think, I'll show you what I think with taking a 4K camera down again. Going to shoot a bunch of video, and I'll do quarterbacks first because they get a lot of the attentions, especially these guys, especially these quarterbacks.
Yeah. Bold prediction. I think we're going to go down there, and I think Rattler and the arm talent is going to be like, oh my gosh, look at the zip on this guy's arm. Because
remember the hype from Malik Willis down there, and people are talking about top 5. Yeah.
Yep.
4th round.
Yep.
3rd round. Yeah. I'm like, he runs and the arm strength. I'm like, he can't hit the broadside of a barn.
Yeah. So, also older and struggled in the whiteboard.
Rattler's a better thrower than Malik Willis.
Yes.
That's not a hot take.
No, that's one, though. I mean, the off-field stuff is concerning, but that'll be interesting. And Troy asked how much accuracy make up for arm strength. It really can, but you have to be unbelievably brilliant as a quarterback in understanding throwing windows and anticipatory throws to overcome arm talent. And sometimes that's not even enough. I mean, you think of some of the most intelligent quarterbacks in football over the last 20 years in Breeze and Peyton Manning. And even at some point, their arm can't get it done with the intelligence they have. You got to have some level of zip. It can make you throw guys. You can wait for guys to be open sometimes to hit them. That's one of my biggest complaints, honestly, with Nix and Penix. Not a lot of true anticipatory layering throws, but they have enough zip that they can wait till a guy's open and then fire it in there. So we'll see with Pratt. Again, I think probably early day 3 to late day 2, but he's one that have an eye on for Broncos country as a probably not a starter next year, but a lottery ticket.
Real quick before I get to my Harley friend, Road Glide Nation here, Quentin Caldwell says that database that I linked says we trained down to 30 for Bo Nix. That's not what it says. It says that they think Bo Nix is the 30th best prospect, but he goes to the Broncos. That's what mock drafts are saying. It shows you where they're ranked, but then it shows where they're picked. So the overall big board, it's called NFL Mock Draft Database, but that shows you a big board of where the players are ranked. And then you can actually look at where the mock drafts. Those are 2 different things. So it's not saying you trade down. It's saying that you reach. You reach, which isn't something you necessarily want to do. But for me, for a quarterback, 30 to 12 isn't that bad. That's in the neighborhood for me. Is he a first-round quarterback? Then I'm okay taking him at 12. That's not a reach. Now, if I've got him at 50, then let's talk. Road Glide Nation coming in with a super. Thank you, my friend. He says, good morning, MHH family. Would you be willing to take a shot on someone like Mac Jones if he became, if he was free? If he was available?
I mean, if you're talking about like a 7th round pick to bring him in and give him football rehab, the issue is that you only have 1 year of that rookie contract left, because there's no way in hell you're using the 5th year option on him with him being a quarterback. He's already been in the league 3 years, so it's just 1 year. And honestly, he probably needs a year of what I like to call football rehab, where he's not sniffing the field. He is just going through practice and getting confidence back up and learning the system. And at that point, then you have to pay him. So I don't know. It really seems like it might not line up in that regard. There was talk that the Saints really liked him in that Payton liked him in that draft class. Maybe you bring him in, but it'd have to be exceedingly cheap, and it would be just a shotgun approach at the quarterback spot. You're bringing him in an assortment of other options and hoping that somebody lands rather than, we got Mac Jones for a 6th round pick. He's our guy. That would be a horrible approach.
Yeah. The answer for me on this one, Road Glide Nation, would be yes. I'd be willing to take that chance. And I would do a deal that you've seen with a pick swap and they pay you. We want to move up from a 7 to a 6. We got to pay the guy anyway because he signed a guaranteed contract. So you pick up $1 million and send us a 7th, and we'll send you, and we'll send you back, or send us a 6. We'll send you back a 7th and Mac Jones. Yeah, I'd give it a shot because, Nick's talking about the cost control. I don't really care about the length of the cost control because right now, as you said, he's destined to become a free agent anyway. I don't worry about cost control because he's not going to cost me anything. So if it's worth a shot and I've got him and I do rehab him and I like what I see, who else is going to see that? Because like you said, he's not playing. Mm-hmm. Who else is going to come in and offer Mac Jones a giant contract? And if you go and you do play him because, oh my God, the light comes on his first year in Denver and you do and he plays awesome, like say Baker Mayfield. Yeah. Well, you've got an awesome quarterback for a year. Let's say if Baker Mayfield goes and wins it. He's already won a playoff game, won the NFC South. You got more than you paid for, but then he leaves because he gets a giant contract. Oh, darn. Yeah, but you've got a playoff season. You got a great year. You won a playoff game. You did all those good things. So, yes, Mac Jones for zero cost, I'd give it a shot.
It would have to be a lottery ticket shotgun approach where he's like you're a little column A, a little column B. You're bringing in multiple options here.
No, this isn't my guy. This is one of several. It's a zero risk for me. We're
buying a scratcher ticket.
I like zero risk.
Yeah. Other than the roster spot. And you do need cost control guys with draft
guarantee there. I'll cut his ass and put him on the practice squad. I'm not paying him anything.
Yeah.
And if I'm willing to cut him and not use a roster spot on him, then I'm not worried about someone else claiming him.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'd give it a shot.
Yeah, and it would depend on I know Mac Jones has a little bit of I heard somebody use this analogy before, and I loved it so much. Duke basketball player energy, where he's a little bit, smarmy.
I immediately go to Chad Kelly.
I think he's smarter than Chad Kelly.
I just mean as far as most likely to get your ass beat by your teammates.
Yeah. Yeah, a little bit of that. But, I mean, again, if it's cheap, sure. But, again, I'm the same category as a Zach Wilson, same category as a Sam Darnold, those former reclamation projects. And you're looking around the league, a lot of these guys who have worked out at other teams are former lottery pick quarterbacks that just didn't work in that situation. So I think that's probably the approach that you want to take at the quarterback this season. If you're not drafting one early, somebody who was considered a early draft pick, even though they didn't work out, and your ceiling is going to be capped. It's not a long-term solution, but maybe you can squeeze enough out of them to get yourself a 500 team and be football competing next season. But it's a it's a rough path, guy. I mean, I know people come in here like, why would you want Jimmy Garoppolo? It's like, guys, we're shopping at after us, before a hurricane. We have saltines and distilled water. That's all we have left to choose. I hope we can make a meal. But you don't have premium ingredients to build this roster this offseason.
Michael says, I'd rather go after Baker Mayfield before Mac Jones if the Broncos had the money for him. This isn't a competition. I mean, that's not a comparison.
Yeah.
It's 100 times Baker Mayfield. Yeah. Baker Mayfield is going to cost you $20 million at least. Nick will say 30 plus. I'll even just say 20. He's going to cost you 20. I'm talking about nothing. Yeah. Zero.
Yep.
New England pays me to take Mac Jones. That's what I'm talking about. Would I get? Sure. Why not? Come on here, work out. If you're an ass, I'll cut you. If you can't throw the ball, I'll cut you. Zero.
Yep.
Zero cost. Baker Mayfield's that means zero risk. Baker Mayfield's going to cost you. He's going to cost you. It's not even close. You'd much rather have Baker Mayfield, without a doubt. I'm talking about zero cost, zero risk, Mac Jones. Why not?
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. So bringing it back to our main topic here, Lloyd Cushenberry said to be a free agent, Josey Jewell as well. I think right now, probably both are gone. Cushenberry especially, I mean, you have them bringing up Alex Forsyth by name. Scott, I mean, you obviously know I've been talking about it in here for a little bit. There had been inner rumblings about how much they were excited about Forsyth, and I felt like that was being leaked to folks like me. So that way we could start talking about that to prepare people for life after Cushenberry. These things aren't just put out there willy-nilly sometimes. Not to be, tinfoil hat, but I feel like sometimes there's an agenda when, folks like me way down the
dude. If somebody's telling you something, there's always an agenda.
Yes, exactly. But when folks like me down the chain are getting like, hey, Cushenberry's playing good, but man, this Forsyth guy, we're really excited about him. What does that mean? They want that out there. And I think they're prepping fans and people like us for that reality. So I think that's coming for Cushenberry. It's unfortunate. I think hopefully for the Broncos, you'll probably play it really, really slow this year with free agency, and maybe somebody gives Cushenberry a decent contract. A team like the Bears can give him a decent contract. Maybe you can get a 5th round, 6th round compensatory pick for him, which is not a lot, but I mean, it's another lottery pick. You can get a special teams guy there, maybe a developmental defensive
You got to be
lineman.
careful saying lottery pick when you talk draft, because there's NBA fans in here too, and that means good. That means really good.
Okay.
Lottery means good in NBA draft.
Here it means low probability.
Yeah.
So that's what I think you're going for in that one. But you talk about Cushenberry. As far as Josey Jewell, from what I understand, I think the Broncos would love to have Josey Jewell back, but I don't think they have the cap ability. That said, I think they'd prefer to have Josey Jewell instead of Alex Singleton. So what I think is going to happen is Singleton is going to be shopped, and you're not going to get a lot for him. It might be even just a 7th round pick to get somebody out of there, but that would free up the cap space to then retain a Josey Jewell. Singleton's been more flashy with the stats. Jewell's a little bit more consistent, and I think also based on what I see, I think Singleton and Sanders are a little bit more overlapping in terms of the dog chasing cars linebacker ability and blitzing versus the steady Eddie of Josey Jewell. So I think Jewell is probably a better pairing with a Drew Sanders than a Singleton Sanders one, but it's just going to come down to what is the easiest path and cheapest. And probability wise, that would probably be Singleton paired with Sanders with Josey Jewell walking, but there is a possibility that they would move on from Singleton and retain Jewell, or retain Jewell and keep Singleton if it's cheap enough. But I really think they do want to see Sanders out there next year.
How about Jonas Griffith? Does he have a chance to be on this roster next year?
He's been so injured every single year that, I mean, I guess it's a possibility, especially with the special teams ability that he has. But I'm not considering him at all. It'd be a pleasant surprise if he did anything for the Broncos next year.
And here's the problem with Singleton. He got a 3-year deal. So he actually got a 2-year deal.
Mm-hmm.
His base salary isn't really tradable. He's got a 5.5 base salary next year. Who's going to pick? How much of that is you going to be, or will you have to eat if you're going to trade for him? If I trade him, is somebody going to pay him $5.5 million? No.
I think somebody might, just because the linebacker free agent class this year is bad. And Scott, people I've talked to have talked about this off-ball linebacker draft class being one of the worst they've ever seen. There might not be a single off-ball linebacker drafted until round 3. And that's 64 picks. And then you have a chance to bring in somebody cheap, 1-year deal. You're not paying the roster bonus. And I'm talking about, you're getting a 7th round pick back, or you're getting
I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about the money.
I think there'd be a team with some money.
Is someone going to pick up $5.5 million? I don't think so. My opinion is no. So therefore, even if I have to eat half of it, and then I have $2.5 million there, and then I re-signed Josey Jewell, I didn't save any money. It actually cost me money to re-sign. I went negative on that. And I think that's going to be tough. I think that's going to be a tough sell. I'm not saying, I think it's more likely the market is soft for Jewell and he comes back on a cheaper deal, because you're going to have to eat about $2.5 million on Singleton anyway.
Yeah.
So why not just give Josey 3?
Yeah, certainly possible. I do think,
or if someone's willing to take $5.5 million of Alex Singleton's money, they're signing Josey Jewell as a free agent.
Good point. Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe they want Singleton's propensity for tackles and being around the ball more, even though limitations in coverage and missed tackles. But I don't know. We'll see. I think there's a chance that they could trade Singleton, at least from what I've gathered. But they want to see Sanders, and that's the big takeaway here. The Broncos are, oh my gosh, I see that I missed the R in the title now. Well, Denby retained their biggest 2 free agents.
I got you on YouTube.
God bless. Denby. Don't not sleep in type of things, guys. But the Broncos, it's really setting up for the 2023 draft class to have roads to sink or swim. They're going to make sure these guys trial by fire next season, 2nd year in, to see if they can hang. You have to do that with where the cap is and without the draft picks, but Alex Forsyth, 7th round pick. You're going to get a chance at center. If not, you probably can bring in a super cheap veteran free agent center that's not going to be great, but can, give you some competency for a year. Same with linebacker. You can probably find Justin Strnad out there for the Broncos. He's not good. He's a back end of the roster guy, but you can plug a hole for a year if Drew Sanders doesn't hang there. Also, the other one is Riley Moss. I'm expecting Riley Moss to be given an opportunity to win that boundary corner spot, to be given to win a safety spot somewhere out there. So that's my big takeaway. I think you're going to let a lot of guys walk. It's going to be post June 1st signings, street free agents, guys who are cut by teams, and Broncos go exceedingly cheap trying to find guys. We're going to really find out. We always talk about the front office and the draft scouting side of things, but there's a whole other side of the front office, guys, and the pro personnel scouting. How good is your pro personnel? Can you identify guys on practice squads, on other teams that you saw preseason clips out there, little clips here or there that you bring them in and boom, big hit. I mean, Alex Singleton kind of was that too. I don't know if you remember, Scott, when they brought him in, like, why would they sign this guy? Why is he considered a starter? He stunk. We want Jonas Griffith. I was one of those people. And he turns out to be a pretty solid starter for what they paid him. You need to hit like 4 or 5 of those Alex Singletons in free agency, which is going to be hard, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's been hit and miss, and it should be. But you look at some of the guys they brought in. DJ Jones was really good last year. Maybe he was battling an injury that they just didn't talk about this year because he fell off pretty dramatically. Zach Allen's a hit. K'Wan Williams was a hit. Some of the guys, Fabian Moreau was a hit. Mike, unfortunately, where you spent your money has been misses. The big dollar guys. Ben Powers was okay. He wasn't worth what you paid for him.
No.
Mike McGlinchey certainly wasn't worth what you paid for him. Russell Wilson certainly wasn't worth what you paid for him. That's where it's been tough. And I'd like to see, instead of taking those big swings, we've talked about this before, go and get $5 million players and put them in your defense for depth. There's going to be money to do that rather than go and start worrying about that big ticket free agent. Go get more good football players. You've got a couple superstars already on defense. Now let's surround them with good, competent football players, especially in the trenches, man. Especially in the trenches.
Yeah. It's really setting up to be a lean year next year, guys. I know nobody wants to hear that. And I've been calling for them to, have a true rebuild for a number of years now, rather than kicking the can that we've seen, just because I don't see many building blocks on this team. You got to know where you are and when you can line up. And honestly, I did think the Broncos were in a window to hit with Russell Wilson, but the fact that he did not live up to top 10 quarterback play really set you back for a number of years. So now I think it's, rather than, delaying the inevitable, rip off the Band-Aid somewhat while still fielding a competitive team. I don't think you can take the dead cap hit all in one season. That would be pretty wild. But you probably are setting yourself up to hopefully get yourself healthy and ready to compete by 2026. And we just saw it with Scott. I mean, probably too close to the situation, you and I, but the Falcons too. You had those dead cap hit years. You tried to meander and, go cheap and just try to field a good roster and evaluate things. And we're building to this moment. Unfortunately, you failed to capitalize this year on that moment, but your cap is healthy. You had a lot of draft picks. You're ready to take off. I mean, you really are. You're built around that. That's probably what the Broncos need to do with where they're at right now. I mean, you just look at the roster. Who are the under 27-year-old building blocks on the offense? It's just Quinn Miners. I mean, that's the only guy on the offense that I feel confident, like 3 years from now, who is still here and a solid starter. Quinn Miners, end list. Sutton, maybe. Quinn Miners, end list, though. On defense, Browning, maybe. Injuries. Nick Benito, maybe. Those are not plus starters, but solid. Allen, yes. Surtain, yes. After that, no. Who are these building blocks? You're far away. You really are. It's unfortunate. It can turn around quickly. I keep having people talk to me on Twitter or whatever, like, well, look at the Texans last year. If the Broncos were picking number 2 overall, had multiple first-round picks as well because of the trade, that the Deshaun Watson trade, and in the worst division in the AFC, okay, maybe a different conversation there. Yeah. You're picking 12. You lack draft capital. You lack a lot of building blocks. You're in a tough spot.
Look at the Texans. Let's look at the Texans. Let's add Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison Jr. to this team and see where they are next year. They'd probably be better.
Oh my gosh. Yep. Absolutely. So we'll see. It's rough. I probably of the opinion here, Scott, it's really milquetoast and boring that if one of the top 9 guys in the draft don't fall to you at 12, I'm hoping to trade back and just take slow burning developmental positions in the draft, guys that are going to be rough and take lumps year one just because of the positions they play. But hopefully the third year of their contract, so 2026, they're starting to emerge as quality starters, specifically in the trenches. So that's what I would probably do. It's not going to be great as far as the football product on the field for 2024, but I think you're probably facing that anyway. So I don't know. Easy for me to say where I'm sitting. My job's not on the line with a rebuild. I'm not going to be fired for taking a long path to getting the Broncos better again, like a potential George Payton. Sean Payton, 2 years from now, if they were bad, the seat's going to be really hot. Easy for me to say, but I think that's probably the best path forward, unfortunately.
On that note, we're going to get moving. I'm just going to say, after Nick's doom and gloom, I saw a team that went 500 that can improve next year. Okay, I did. I saw a team that can get better next year. They were a 500 team in a watered down, parity-driven league.
Yep.
2 wins difference, and all of a sudden you're 10-7. I think that's still possible. We'll have all offseason to talk about it. I hit on it a little bit last week, and we'll dig more into it. And Michael coming in, closing us out. He says, great show today, Nick and Scott on Broncos for breakfast. And then we've got a new person coming in with some stars. Reading Rainbow.
I love that.
Sorry, I almost never get to be here live. I teach high school, so early AM work for me. But I love the podcast. You both are 2 of my favorite Broncos analysts. Well, appreciate the good words, and thank you for doing what you do. It's tough. I got a 14-year-old and a 12-year-old, and I can't imagine dealing with a whole bunch of them. So thank you for what you do for our communities.
Yeah, thank you, Rating Rainbow. Appreciate you so much. We'll have a lot of time to talk draft and everything. Sorry to be doom and gloom. Yeah, Nick is only 30, waited so he can another 20 years. Yeah, the thing is, I keep telling myself, well, by the time my son has memories, Mahomes will be, mid 30s almost. Hopefully, early 30s, getting closer to the end, and the Broncos can be out of that. So as long as they're better, 5 years from now, where we can have some core memories of Denver not being terrible, we're okay. Then we're in the clear. I'm worried if it's this going forward, but
let's see. I think mine were 7-5 in 2016. Do the math on that. Moving to Atlanta in 2016. There's your core memories. Neither one of them watch sports anymore.
Got too excited for it. Yeah. Yep. We'll see what happens. Any final thoughts, Scott? Do you think either Cushenberry and Jewell are back?
I think Jewell's got a chance because he'll be cheaper. I don't think I wouldn't give I'd give Jewell a 1-year, $3 million deal. Sure. Will he get more than that? Possibly. Would I bring back what Lloyd Cushenberry could be in line for, which is a 4-year, $50 million contract, which would basically be 3 years, 24 guaranteed, 3 years, 25 guaranteed? No, I wouldn't commit to that. No way. Absolutely not. And I think he's going to get that on the open market.
Yeah.
And that's my prediction for him. 3 years, 25 guaranteed.
I think you're about right there. So we'll see. Be interesting offseason. Not as much fireworks as far as the Broncos signing guys left and right. Not only the big contracts, but also, your Michael Burtons, your Samaje Perines. So we'll see what happens to the Broncos. They're really gonna have to hit those back end picks. It's real best way for the Broncos to turn around, Scott. Trade back a bunch, get some of those guys, and hit like the Rams have hit. How about the Rams? I mean, these cheap guys they brought in, the undrafted free agents, the day 3 picks, filling out a roster like that, that's probably the closest way back to, or other than hitting on a quarterback at 12, closest way to relevance. But that's a pretty hard ask. So we'll see.
It can be done. Like I said earlier, the bar has been set so low that I think you improve in the trenches next year, which would be worth
defensive
2 more
trenches.
wins.
Yeah.
From where you were last year. Before we get out of here, I want to say thank you to our Super Chat and Facebook superstars like Mark Schrader and Miguel and Keith and Michael, who came in, and the Boogmeister and Montana Altitude. And look at these hot pink guys coming in. Gary Palmer and Troy Boer. Road Glide Nation, thank you so much. And welcome, Reading Rainbow. And finally, to the big dog, the big snake, the King Cobra, Rattlesnake Master, with a max super chat. Thank you so much. Appreciate all of you. Here we are mid-January. and now that we're in the offseason, it means more now than it ever does. So thank you so much, y'all.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much. Make sure you're following Scott and I on Twitter. Scott is at Scout Kennedy. I'm at Nick Kendell MHH. Also, make sure you're following us at Mile High Huddle. If you haven't done so yet, join us at facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and facebook.com/Mile High Huddle pod. And as the ticker says here underneath, please subscribe, like, and share over on YouTube. We're not going anywhere. Scott's going to be heading down to Mobile to cover the Senior Bowl. It should be a really good one this year. Exciting. The first year where the underclassmen can participate fully in this. They don't just have to be graduated, like an early graduation that used to be the rule. So that'll be fun to see a lot of those guys down there, and a lot of quarterbacks of intrigue. Unfortunately, I have not heard anything about Jaden Daniels being down there, but should be fun regardless. And we'll cover that. A lot of offseason conversation, a lot of rumors, a lot of churning. I'm sure we have coaching staff churning coming up here pretty soon as well for the Broncos we'll have to get into. So it's that time of year. Hopefully everybody enjoys the weekend. Continue to choose kindness and compassion. And as always, go Broncos.